Hello everybody, this is Bookie for Good Eve, and today it's going to be a little bit of a story time. I'm going to share my experience, sadly, being defrauded in my 20s. So, let me paint the picture. I'm just going to get right into it. It's 2006 in Lagos, Nigeria, and you know this is a time when the economy was popping off. Things were good, although we didn't know it then. Naira was stronger to the dollar. And here I was, a young lady in her 20s, single for that matter, but, you know, with hopes to be engaged at that time. And I had gotten the job of my dreams. I had always wanted to work in one of the top 4 consulting firms, global consulting firms. And let me be specific about who they were at that time. So we're talking about PwC, we're talking about KPMG, I don't know what that means. We're talking about Accenture, and we're talking about Deloitte. Now, I don't want to say which one I worked in, but you know, let's just say it started with a vowel. Anyway, so I get this job as a consultant, and I'm so psyched, and they put me on a project almost right away. And where are they sending me to? I get to leave Lagos, which is the financial capital of the country, used to be the national capital of Nigeria. And they're sending me to the new capital, which is Abuja. And I was so excited. Young, single girl, gonna be living in Abuja on my own. I mean, it was like Sex in the City. I had so many dreams. I can't lie to you. I was so excited. So fortunately, the client we were going to be working for in this company was an oil and gas, a major oil and gas player. And if you know anything about Nigeria, you know oil and gas is really big for us, even till today. But in the 2000s, these were the glory days of oil and gas. So, of course, the client put us up in these beautiful, serviced, fully furnished, lovely apartments in the center of the city. I mean, I could almost walk to work. It would have been a long walk, but I could have almost walked to work. And so here, I've set the scene. Of course, other young people in this consulting firm, gorgeous looking guys, beautiful women. We were all young, had time on our hands, so we became friends fast. I made a lot of friends working in this company, and I was just having a really good time. So a friend of mine, we were both on the same team. He had worked in one of the other Big 4 before he joined this firm, right? And so he told me about an investment opportunity, how he had a former colleague. Actually, she had also come from that same firm. So they'd worked together for about, let's say, 3 years before. And so what she would do is she had 2 lines of business. One was a laundromat and one was a bakery. I mean, look, Nigeria at that time had 170 million people. Bread was good business, so I thought. And I had been in baking before, right? So it wasn't just bread, it was cakes. And, you know, as a college student, I had actually, you know, sold cakes, baked, and earned a really good income baking cakes. So I understood some of the fundamentals of that business. And I thought, okay, she can scale it. She has the infrastructure, workers that she trusts. Then it would be a lovely business to invest in. And because he knew her and he'd invested with her for I think 1 year. I think he'd done a 12-month cycle with her. He'd done 100,000 naira at the time. She paid him 10,000 naira every month. And at the end of the year, she gave him back 100,000 plus 10,000 again. So I thought, I mean, this is a really good return. Why would I not want to do this? So because he knew her and, you know, he was my social proof. And I knew that, yes, laundry, I could imagine. I mean, at that point, I was dry cleaning a lot of my clothes as a professional. So I could imagine that, okay, yeah, the fundamentals, if well run, these could be really good businesses. And she spoke well. Remember, we're working in a firm where you're working with consultants, so we know how to present, we know how to talk, we know how to use those key levers, the right language. So everything she said, it just sounded right. So I just thought, okay, let me invest in this business. And so I handed over to her, this is very hard to say, 600,000 naira. Yes, I know. And you know, at the time, the way they paid us monthly, right? And so we used to get like a portion of it that I think was like an upfront, like a housing allowance or some kind of leave allowance. So basically that was how much my leave allowance was. And I gave her everything because I was thinking I was going to, and I was a hard negotiator. So I was like, you're not going to pay me 10,000 naira, 10% a month. I want 15% a month. And guess what? She agreed. I just thought that I was so clever. I was a great negotiator. I got myself a good deal. And now the money was just going to keep coming in. I was so excited. And my friend also invested with her. I mean, he did much more. Let's call him Ken. He did much more than I did. But, I just said, look, let me just do 600 because, I still had some fundamental investment principles. Always invest what you can afford to lose. And even though it would be painful to lose that money, I could afford to lose it at that time. Remember, I was single. I lived with my folks, except for when I was on this project in Abuja. And I didn't have any kids, so I didn't have that many responsibilities. So I could afford to take this risk, even though, as you will find out, it was a really foolish risk to take. But at the time, it seemed like it was sound. And let me also give you more context. At the time, there was this company called Norspecto, and they were doing the same thing. And they were also in oil and gas. And then there was another company, and there were all these oils. They're making some special kind of oil that's for asphalt or black oil. And to tell you that even intelligent and exposed people can get defrauded, I was working in one of the oil majors. So I just thought, this to me sounded fishy. I'd never heard of this so-called black oil or this byproduct of petrochemicals. And I just thought, well, I know people who work in the, the research department. Let me go and see them. So I sat with them and I spoke with them and I told them about this investment. And they were like, Bookie, it's a fraud. Don't do it. And a lot of my colleagues invested. In fact, one of my colleagues, I think the challenge with really smart young people and fraud is that even some people that you think are very church and faithful and religious minded begin to realize that, if Norspecto can run this type of scam, so can I. I mean, after all I have to do is get enough people to give me money and just pay them out a percentage of what they've given me every month. So even another one of our colleagues, although I didn't participate in that one because it just seemed dodgy to me. He even had one. And it turned out that he was behind it, and he's still on the lam. No one, we see him on LinkedIn, but no one's seen him in Nigeria and Lagos for a long, long time. So what happened with my situation? She paid me for about 2 months. And in my promo, I showed you that I had a check from her. And then she gave me the third check. And all of a sudden, she started getting sick. We wouldn't see her at work. She always looked like she was pregnant. She kind of had her stature. She was, had a bit of body like I do, but she had like a protruding tummy. And so she always kind of looked like she was a little bit pregnant. So I wasn't sure, culturally, we try to be very kind as Nigerians. If a woman's pregnant, you don't want to stress her. You don't want to. So you just kind of watch, we have this belief that, don't worry, time will tell. If you are pregnant or not, the secrets will not be hidden forever. We will know. So she was sick a lot. She would not come to work. And so I remember trying to get a hold of her because she needed to give me my third check, right? And so I, finally got a hold of her. I think she came in and she was in a meeting, even with clients, but I was determined to get my money on time, because I was on a target. And so she hands this check over to me. And I took this check from her. And you can see that it's dated 2006. And I just thought, I got the check from her, 120,000. That's my, payout. And we were in Abuja, but I used to come home every weekend to Lagos. So I was like, look, I didn't have time to go to the bank. So I'll do that when I go to Lagos. And so I went on with my work, and the next day she didn't come to work again. And I was like, what's going on? Something going on with my money. Hey. So I now asked my friend Ken, I've heard that, let's call her Nutmeg. Her name is like a seasoning, but I'll call her Nutmeg. I have not seen Nutmeg in the office. Where is she? And he's like, well, he too is looking for her. In fact, he wasn't even able to get his check for the month. And I'm like, okay. And we were all living in the same apartment block that they had gotten, all these serviced apartments. So, there was also that comfort of, she's my co-worker, she's my neighbor, she was there with her 3 kids, her husband was there, we knew them, they were lovely people, very friendly. So, I was just like, no, she must just be ill. There's a misunderstanding. After all, we work in we pride ourselves in that company for hiring people of integrity. It was the only meritocracy, the closest thing to a meritocracy that I had ever worked in. And so I just thought, no, she couldn't cheat us. Of course not. So we get nervous, and I think that evening we go home and we get to the apartment block, and she's still there, and she's like, oh, I'm just feeling ill, and she holds her tummy, but doesn't say she's pregnant, but kind of insinuates that she is. And so we're like, okay, let's not be inconsiderate and unsupportive, let's just be patient. Once she's feeling a little bit better, so we go to work the following morning. We get to work, and at about 10 o'clock, what do we hear? She's gone. And we're like, what? And we hear from one of our colleagues. They just passed, by the project office, and they're like, Bookie, Ken, she's gone. I'm like, who's gone? They're like, Nutmeg. I'm like, Nutmeg is gone? How? She has 3 children. She's pregnant, we think. Her husband, how? So, to my eternal shame, I left work that day because now I'm feeling sick. And me and Ken, we get in a cab, boom, 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 boom. We rush back to our guest suites or apartment block. And we get there, and we rush up to her room or her apartment, we knock on the door is even open. You see maybe like a cleaner. When these things happen, it's like you're in a daze. There's always one cleaner or one staff that barely wants to answer questions, but will answer you in a way that you understand. It will register, but you'll be paid. And it's just like, she no day. Where did she go? She don't go. Where? I don't know. Hey. We open the apartment. On the floor, you see maybe 1 or 2 of her kids' toys, some clothes strewn. It's almost, the speed at which they had packed. Some unessential things had just been left, but they packed a lot of stuff, so it was clear they were gone. They were on the lam. I was like, what? Well, part of also what gave me the confidence to invest. I said, well, this is devastating, this is terrible, but you know what? She works for one of the big 4 firms. And I know she has leave allowance. I know she has some upfront money, housing money coming. And my money is just 600K. She's already given me 240 out of it. And I have another check for 120. So once I get to Lagos, I will go pay my check-in, and then even if they can't give me my whole 500 back, at least I will get my 300. So I'm confident that this arrangement, foolishly thinking that it was just me and my friend Ken who had given her money. So I get back to Lagos, I go to our HR manager, and we called him Captain. So I'm like, Captain, I now take my evidence, I take my agreement. I had an agreement, which I still have. I have this check, and I'm showing you this check because I keep it in my wallet with me always to remind me that I should never invest in something like this again. So I get to Captain. Let's get back to Captain. And I'm like, Captain. I show him all my evidence, and he's like, oh, Bookie, my sister, my daughter, whatever, sit down. I'm like, okay, I'm seated. He proceeds to pull out a list of people. We were more than 20 or 30 that she had collected money from. When your heart sinks to your toes and you're sure that even though you're breathing, you don't know how, because your heart is not there anymore. I was like, what? He said she took money. I was a consultant, so above consultant is manager, above manager, senior manager, above senior manager, partners. Below consultants in the hierarchy are analysts, and below them corpers. She said she took money from people without, in fact, consultants, her fellow consultants. She took money from us. Managers, she took money from them. Senior managers, she took money from them. I'm not sure she reached the partnership level. You know those ones have shame, so they probably just didn't say anything. But what even saddened me, she took money from analysts. These are entry-level guys. She took from them. Cleaners in the office. How much are these people earning? It means that even 5,000 naira she collected. Don't worry, give me the 5,000 naira. I'll be giving you 500 naira. I said, this thing is sickness. How was she even expecting to cope? Well, obviously, she was not expecting to cope. She cleaned out. But you know what's funny? I still receive calls from her occasionally. Oh yes. In fact, there was one day she called me. She told me she was in Naija. I said, I live in Naija. Where are you? I'll come and see you. She said, no. Okay, I'm still going to pay you that money. I know I'm owing you. I will still pay you. This is 2006, so are we not in 2021? I've never seen her again. I've never gotten paid. I understand she has run several other schemes. In fact, at a point, a bank took her to court. But unfortunately, the paperwork was not tidy. I will not say more about the court matter. But why am I sharing this story with you? This thing happens to everybody. You can do everything to ensure. She was my colleague. I knew her to, in fact, we were neighbors. She was my colleague. She was my neighbor. I knew her husband. I knew her children. We worked in the same organization. I knew her boss. To get her in trouble, she didn't pay me my money back. I felt I had all the levers to ensure that she would keep to her word. Only to understand that all those things are not a sure guarantee. I even understood the business that she was in. But the truth is, she probably never, and this is just my hypothesis, she probably never used the money for that business. That's just the reality, because she didn't need that much capital to run a bakery or cake making business and a laundromat. Once you've done the capital investment of buying the machine, once you're selling services, your services should be able to pay the salaries of your workers. So maybe you want to do some marketing and things like that, but the fact that she was taking from almost everybody who was willing to give her a listening ear, no, she wasn't using it for that business. And that's the truth about business. Sometimes you just can't know what people are using it for. So that doesn't mean that they're not things we can do and they're not investments we can invest in. But anyway, that is the end of my story time. So if you want to know what happened to her, she got off scot-free, to the best of my knowledge. Nothing happened to her. She's free, roaming the streets of Lagos. So if you see someone whose name starts with G, but there is seasoning, not nutmeg, please, my advice to you, avoid. Keep your money. In fact, use that money and spend it. It's better than to hand it over to her. Goodbye for now. Please subscribe.